Hello, and welcome to Rever's Recommendations, the first ever. I am Rever. If you guys aren't familiar with my channel, I've been doing a bunch of workers' resources in the Soviet Republic, and decided to take a little break from that because I found another game that I really enjoy, Frontier Pilot Simulator, and I've really had a lot of fun. If you enjoy the delivery aspect, this game has a basic economic system that's very similar to American Truck Simulator or European Truck Simulator, where the overall goal is to pick up cargoes and deliver them to different airports, I guess you could call them. It's all these, as you can see in front of us, we have this vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Now, to give you an idea of where we're at with this playthrough, I've completed a few of the quests. If you start out, you may note that you have slightly smaller engines. If we go over to a repair bay, which we'll do pretty shortly, I can show you, and give you some advice. I don't get the batteries because the batteries weigh too much and you really don't need them for hopping around this island. But getting the bigger motors definitely helps a whole lot, and then there's also an upgrade for the chassis that will help you a fair amount as well. So that's the only two things that I usually upgrade here, and we're getting close to enough money. I'm not sure how well you guys can read the writing down there, but I have 22,000 credits just about. Now sometimes they have a dollar symbol, sometimes they say credits, so if I call them dollars, that's why. In any event, we are sitting here at one of the main, on this little island where you start. We are sitting here and we're right near, this is a cargo loading platform, trading platform I think they might call it. I'm going to back up a little bit until that turns yellow. You'll see that whole thing turns yellow. And once I come to a complete stop, it turns green. Now what I'm going to do is hit the A button on my controller and you open up a trading screen. And in this case, I've already kind of worked out what I want to do for the first flight at least. We are going to spend $2,300 and load up this bio radar and associated equipment. There we go. So that'll take a minute. I don't know if you can see the crane down at the bottom, puts it over towards that circle behind the plane. And there's a little crane, I can't really move the camera in this view, but that comes in, there is a little crane so you can pick up cargo on the back of our plane there. So now that we've picked it up, we now have that cargo in our machine. Now you can see it also took away, we had close to 22,000, now we only have 19,500 or 700. And another thing that you can do at these ports is recharge. Again, I'm using a controller, which I recommend a controller or a joystick based on your preference. The controller works quite well. I have an Xbox controller plugged into my PC, but you can also see the current weight is pretty darn high, so this is going to be a very heavy load for us. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure if we're going to be able to handle it, and I'll show you how you can tell if you can handle it in a minute. In any event, we are fully charged up here, 850 of 850. So let's come back out here. And there we are. So now we're back ready to go. Now I'm going to hit the right trigger. And when I get in the air a little bit, I'm going to hit Y, and that's going to hold the trigger. Otherwise, what happens is as you let go of the trigger, your thrust goes back down. So let's see. If we hold in Y, so we barely have enough thrust. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a little tiny bar that's showing how much extra thrust we have. And it's just very limited. So what I'm going to do, again, based on my experience, we don't fly into that tower right there. So I'm just slowly turning and gaining altitude. Now that we are facing out to the ocean, when we tilt forward like this, we lose downward thrust. So if you look over to the left, you'll see that we're now falling. You can tell because it's at 8, but we're also gaining speed. Even this early plane has wings. So I want to get some speed up, so I took that fall in a sense. And now we're getting extra lift as we're coming here. Now I'm going to get turned over to the city of Port, or I don't know if you call it a city, the airport of Port. And... yeah, see, we're barely holding our own here, but now So what I'm going to do is play this game of, trying to move myself forward without losing too much lift. Now our altitude here is pretty much okay, but you can see we would never make this trip if we had to try to fly over all those mountains. In addition to that, there's other hazards in the game, like geysers and volcanoes. So now you can see we're actually climbing back up again. Now that we've got our speed up, we've sort of stabilized. So you can see when you're trying to carry a really heavy load, there's quite a few piloting challenges. Now the other thing is I got to really keep an eye on that downward speed. There's our port. This is where we're going. And so I want to now start slowing, like dropping down so we can get to that. But I have to be real careful that I don't start falling too fast. Now we also have the battery charge in the bottom left there. Now, and another thing, remember when I tilt back to lose my vertical speed, it's going to take away some of my thrust. Now, we don't want to take all day to get down there, so I'm going to take this up to about 15, like going down at 15, right? So you can see we're making a nice gentle thing. We're using up a lot of our battery, but we should be in good shape. In the middle, towards the top of the screen, you can see how much battery time we have left. Now we're down to we're up to 22. That was kind of a little more than I intended. Doesn't, it didn't hurt. But as you get close, you really want to be, when you want to land at like about 5, or so, like, especially when we're this heavy, we don't want to come down too hard. So 8, 7, this is pretty good. Now there's a ground effect too, so that'll help cushion us a bit. And I'm also looking at that bar. When we get close enough, I'll take a little bit extra off, and then hit Y, and that like sort of shuts it off in a sense, because it switches it back to that other mode, and I wasn't holding the trigger. So there we go. We made a flight. It's kind of hard to describe everything my fingers are doing, even though my mouth was moving relatively quickly. It's still all kind of happens pretty quickly. Now, if we had batteries attached to this plane, we would not have been able to do that. So there's no place on these islands that you can't generally get to, and that's about as heavy a load all the way across the island. Let's take a quick look at the map before we sell this. I guess you could go a little bit further, but that's pretty darn far when you think about it. We had to fly all the way around here, so there's really no place on this map you can't go with this setup. So in any event, you can see here that we have our equipment. Let's get back out of the map mode, and then we'll come over here, and we come back to this screen, and we're going to sell this. So we'll get 5,200 for selling it, so we'll kind of double our money. Now, if we had crashed, we're going to lose the cargo still stays in the game. If you crash in the ocean, you'll never get it back, and 9 times out of 10, if you crash on land, you're going to be on some mountain slope. It's really not worth picking up the cargo. So for the most part, unless you crash in the airport or something like that, your cargo is pretty much done for. So the game is pretty forgiving if we had crashed. At that point, it's pretty forgiving. It doesn't charge you a whole lot. It's not permadeath or anything like that. Let me come up here and charge up. I'm holding the X button to get us all the way charged back up again. Now we have 2 options for things that we can take. Water in general is a good thing to sell. Anything on this island between the hops, you're not going to make a ton of money, or we can sell these protein sea rations. So let's go back out of this screen for a minute and decide what we're going to do. We're going to come back over to our map. Now, you'll see that there's like a repair symbol here, and you'll see that there's several green available items. Those are upgrades to the ship that you're flying. And you see the red one, those are actually ships that we can buy. So at this port here, this spaceport Astalin? Okay, whatever. You can buy an Ox. That's the next one up, 28,000. Now you will get a trade-in for your other vehicle, so we don't actually have to have 28,000. As a general rule, though, I'd say you probably want to get up close to that before you sell it. Otherwise, you won't have any money for your next cargo. Now you can always potentially take a passenger, so I haven't ever run out of money to the point that you couldn't do something to keep going, but you know, so I don't even know what happens if you go into the negative, but I have crashed quite a bit. My biggest piece of advice would be, generally speaking, try to fly around these mountains. They're, you know, like there's two volcanoes. If we zoom in, you can tell the volcanoes because they have that shape. And then there's also, I know by Nord here, there's geysers, and there's also a bunch of geysers on the south side of Bora here. So you're almost always better off doing like what we did and staying towards the coast. Now this is a pretty safe area. You can jump over, there's like a valley right here you can jump across, and you'll get familiar with how to navigate. It's pretty tough though when you're cutting across land, because you can run right into a geyser barely even seeing it, especially if there's a bunch of clouds. And once you get up above, let's say 1,000 feet, maybe even less than that, there's going to be clouds and all kinds of other things in your way, so to speak. Okay, take a deep breath. So having said all of that, we want to make our way back to Astlin, and we want to buy the ox. We've got pretty much enough money, but we also might as well take advantage of, you know, another trip, right? Take a notice. Oh, it stopped moving. If you take a look at the bioradar and associated equipment, the price is going up, and the price will also go down once we make these deliveries. So it's not like you can just keep taking water bottles someplace. It will drop. But what I want to look for here is some place that either needs protein rations or water bottles that's closer to Astlin, right? We might as well take something, you know, take advantage. Now, when you're on this island, you really don't have to worry too much. The fuel or battery charge doesn't really cost that much, so it's not like we couldn't just fly back there and buy the ship. But also want to show you guys another flight during this video, and then we'll do maybe one more flight with the ox there. You know? Now, I also picked this point because there are some beginning quests that you would want to do, and you have to do one of them, and one of them's to pick up a package from Nord, and that's what actually unlocks the bigger engines. But the bigger engine and that package that you pick up was not quite as heavy as what we just did, but pretty darn heavy. And I definitely recommend you fly around this way to get there. Like when you get out of Nord, come this way, and you know, go over the ocean. It's just a lot easier than trying to fly up over the mountains. So in any event, let's take a look for where we can either sell water bottles or protein rations C1. And you can hover over each of these, even though it's sort of, let me move the mouse down. Yeah, see, every time it shows there, it's blocking the view of that one thing, so I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, because we got too much writing in one spot there, unfortunately. So we could take C rations or whatever. That's sort of further away than we want to go, right? If we move over a bit again, we could take the C rations up here. We could take, you know, B rations, which we don't have, and empty batteries. Yeah, see, so it's really not the greatest. Now, what about this? I wish I could see what that other said. Goliath parts. Yeah, it's just not gonna. It's just, well, let's see. You know what? We can zoom in. There you go, 50 liter. So why don't we take some water bottles over to here, make a few bucks, right? They're 4,400 or so, and we buy them for 1,000. So that'll be another 3,000 bucks, and put us real close to the 28,000. Which again, we'll get a trade in, so we don't. It's not overly critical that we do this, but wanted to show you one more flight in this little Scarab before we get rid of it. Now, the game doesn't have any saves in the sense of you can't like exit after you crash. Now, they do have some save slots, so you can do different profiles. I'm on a secondary profile here, the Bravo profile, just so I can show you guys. This is a good point to give you a good demo of what the game is about, because the next plane is a little more sophisticated, and it will help. I can show you a little bit more of the flight mechanics in case you're interested in buying this game. So we're going to buy some water bottles, and we'll see the little crane come over and put them in here. There he goes. And we're always make sure you're charged up. Now, these water bottles aren't overly heavy if you look. They have 1,500, and again, because we have the bigger motors, you know, we're only at about half capacity there, so Now also note this, you can only ever take one cargo. When you get the biggest ship, it'll say one of two here, so you'll be able to take two separate cargoes. But that's kind of a ways off in the game from this point. You can progress through. I would say if you really knew what you were doing, you could probably get to the biggest ship within 10 hours. But some of the fun is just flying around and crashing into things. You know, hopefully I won't do that, but you know, once we take off, we can see there's a little yellow line. I'm not sure if you guys can make it out. It's like right up here. And because I know I'm going to Central, I'm going to kind of get some altitude first, right? And I look up here and I can see Central is, you know, further this way. And I can see, I know that there's like a volcano that we kind of have to avoid as we head there. Central it's not very far away from us, but it's kind of up this way. So we need to do it. So I didn't take off like I did the last time. I'm just sort of trying to get a lot of height, which wastes a lot of fuel. Not waste, I mean, it's, you know, we're not moving towards the target, so to speak. So now I'm going to reduce my throttle, try to get out of these clouds. See, this is what I'm talking about with the weather. Like, I'm keeping an eye. We're still going up. I don't want to come down too much, but we need to get to where we can see. And there, all right, now I can see it. So now if you look over to the left there, we're descending. And you can tell if you look, it's almost looks like we're hovering. Now you can see the wind and whatnot. Now I get that by pressing the D stick down. You can turn that wind off if you want a little bit different challenge. I like to leave it on, especially because they have those darn things. Now we're starting to pick up a lot of vertical speed here. Look how we're up to 27. And because we're so heavy, you got to watch out. This is where you crash. If you let that get up to like 40 or 50, you're almost guaranteed to go into the ground. Now, so what I'm going to do is just move that throttle, left stick, right stick, and just kind of maintain this. You know, you don't want to go down so slow you run out of batteries. And then on the right-hand side, or left-hand side, I can see my vertical speed. You don't want that to be too high either. So now we're at 20, so I want to cut that down. As we get close here, I want to get that down to like 10. If you're under 10, you're not going to do too much damage. And I would say, remember, we have a ground effect here, so that'll slow us down. Like if we just come down real slow like this, and again, we're real heavy, so this is fine. You'll note that we might just start hovering here. See that? So I'm going to take a little, oh, we even went back up because of the ground effect. Now you don't want to overreact, right? Like make sure you keep it slow. Just take your throttle down slightly, you know? And again, because we're so heavy, you don't have to be so careful. There we go. And then I'm going to hit Y once you touch down. And if you notice, there's a height bar here there's a number over here that's saying like minus 24, minus 10. Keep an eye on that because sometimes it's really hard to judge. It's really hard to judge here how fast, you know, how close to the ground you are sometimes. So looking over here, you can see that minus 10, minus 5. And that helps a lot. All right, so we moved into this was yellow, and then it turned green. And we are going to go ahead and sell these. And then since I'm pretty familiar with the game, what I'm going to do, just real quick, because I know it's over that way where we sell these G-type batteries. You'll see what I mean. It's the first place you start out on the map. So we're going to buy these. We made sure we were already charged up by hitting X. And again, if your controller's different, I'm sorry, but you'll get it. That shouldn't, you know, whether you use a PlayStation controller or Xbox controller or whatever. I don't even know if this game's available in the other things. I just bought it on Steam, so. Okay, so here we go. We have our batteries, which are relatively light. If you look at our overall weight, we're only at 550 here, right? But we do have one of one cargo. So this will get us a few extra bucks. Not much, but it'll pay for the fuel heading over there. So let's hit B. Now you'll notice because we're so much lighter, this will be like the lightest load we've done so far. I'm going to hit this. Oh, the other thing I didn't say is I'm hitting Y, and that's locking it in. Or maybe I did say that. But notice how much faster we jump up in the air. And I cut my throttle down just because I know I don't even really need to go too high. Again, I'm pretty familiar with jumping around this island at this point. Now I'm going to take my throttle down even further because now that I'm over that little ridge there, I want to start getting descending. So now I'm keeping an eye on that. Now that my descent, again, get it up to about 20 is a nice speed to come down. We could probably go a little faster safely. Bring my throttle back up. As we start getting closer, we'll start tilting back a little bit with the left stick, just to get our vertical speed down. Horizontal speed's getting a little, keep it can be in the teens, no problem, as you're approaching there. And again, we have a light load, so if we need to, we could really pour on the throttle, and you want to be kind of gentle with it. Say like a little more throttle, cut the throttle back down because we got that ground effect, and then hit Y, and it gets it out of that, hold the throttle mode, and then back up a little bit. Hit A. Now we're not going to pick up those battery for drones. We're just going to hit A and sell what we have. And then I'm going to come over here and hit X. While they're loading and unloading, it'll recharge us up. Though we really probably didn't need to. Might almost be a waste of money since we're about to go buy a new ship, right? So I guess you could turn it in with half a tank of gas type thing. Alright, so anyway, I'm going to hit the B key to get out of this. There we are. So now we're going to head just right over behind us is the port that sells the aux. This time I'm not going to use the Y. Watch my trigger over there on the left-hand side. I have to work it. And I'm not like a kid that ever played with the Xbox controller racing games. If you were good at it, you could probably get real good. You could say I'm not doing too bad from experience with this game. So I'm just holding that. There's no green box around that over there. So so you can do it either way. If you're good with a controller, better than I am, you don't always have to use the Y. So now I'm going to slow down. So you kind of have more control if you're good with the controller. You know what I mean? Like, there you go. I think I did pretty nicely, right? Yeah, so now we really didn't need to land on this landing pad. We could have probably landed, now that I think about it, right over by there. We don't put a cargo in. You can't sell the plane if it has a cargo in it. So we're going to go get the aux, and I think what we'll do is do we want to get the cargo for a cargo spaceway? So what we want to do is we're going to take a little bit longer flight now, and I'll just show you how that works out, and then that'll end the video. And I don't want to give away a lot of the game. I know there's people that like to figure it out for themselves, but I thought, well, you're going to figure out. I mean, there's helpful advice I hope I just gave you if you do buy the game, but I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to do too many quests or anything like that. I will say, though, that you do need to do the first quest to get these engines. I recommend here, now that we're in this port, finally, we're in the repair shack, I'll show you what upgrades I got. So if I use the D-pad, but you can also use the mouse and click on things. So I got, these Mongoose engines, so that gives you a pretty good power boost that lets you pick up most of the cargo, though you can see we struggled with them still, right? And I also got this mule chassis. It's not, I guess they're being obscure about things to make it more challenging, but it does give you some clue. It helps with rigidity. In other words, this is more rigid and therefore stronger. You can get some idea by this horsepower, or hit points. I'm sorry, not horsepower. Hit points. So that does give you an idea of how much damage, especially on something like this chassis. Definitely it gives you an idea. And then, of course, the price gives you an idea. I would not get these batteries on this ship. At least not unless there's something else you can unlock that I'm not aware of, because they just add too much. Even that little difference in weight there, the 3.39 or 0.23 tons, that's enough that we wouldn't have been able to make that first flight we made. So, in any event, you can get upgrades. If you buy the game, you can figure that out for yourselves. And I'm not being mean. If you guys want to see more, if you want more episodes, I don't know if I'd do a full Let's Play, but I would certainly be willing to do more episodes of this. Really enjoying the heck out of it. So there we go. Now I want to point out here that this is the aux, and this aux has 2 flight modes, which is really nice, because then you can go longer distances and better at the difficult conditions. Like with this thing, you just hit a geyser and you're pretty much in the ground. This thing, if you're moving fast enough, sometimes you can get through them without dying. Like, and then the ballena is a bigger. I think that means whale in Spanish or something like that. So it's, you know, it's a bigger ship. It can kind of handle some more of the radiation and stuff that's going on in the game. So in any event, you can buy it outright, and I'm not sure why you would do that versus just exchanging it. I don't know why you would ever want two ships. It's not like ETS or ATS where you can hire workers, as far as I know. So maybe that's coming in the future. But if you notice, with this ship as it sits there, we will only have to pay $20,000, which is good. Like I said, try to get up to the 30 grand or 28 grand, just so that you have enough to buy the next cargo, right? So there we go. So we bought it, and it quite abruptly bops us out of there. So this is our new ship. So the biggest difference with this one it has two modes. The first mode is like the VTOL mode, but then as we get up there, we'll be able to hit, once we get some speed up, and I'll show you how I take off and kind of transition from VTOL to you know, take a trip out to a platform out at sea there. But then basically you put it in wing mode, and that's how you get much further. So let me come here. I'm not necessarily going to do that quest. Let's see if there's something we can take out there from this port. So I'm going to hit the map button, and then I'm going to hover over here so we can get nothing. So let's go over and see what that cargo is about and where they want us to take it. Because I think that is, you know, they want us to take it out to somewhere out in the ocean. Like, it says for a cargo spaceway, and that's a little bit, you know, obscure in a sense. Again, they don't tell. It's a little bit tough to figure out where cargoes can go. They could make it easier. I don't know why they make it harder. I guess they, you know, it's a little frustrating to try to figure out where to take things, but then again, after a while, you learn, you know, that certain things. So I hit D down, by the way, and that opens up my cargo thing. And hopefully that's actually in the cargo ramp. Now I'm going to hit D-pad to the left. Not possible. Now if we just pull forward, okay, see how that thing pops up down here? That gives you an idea of the size of the cargo you're about to pick up. So we still have plenty of, you know, this is not very heavy for this ship. And this now means we can pick it up by hitting D-pad sideways. There it goes. Plunk. All right, so we want to take this. It should be straight on the cargo spaceway upper deck, and be careful. So what we want to do is take a look at the map. Now, I think in the last time I tried to do this, I crashed and died. So I'm not sure. Oops, let's get rid of that. So look, by the way, here's a big, huge map, and we should see cargo spaceway is here, but I don't see an actual. So they want us to go up here and drop off this thing. So if we click on it, it's 103 kilometers away, and I don't feel real comfortable with this ship with no upgrades doing that. So I want to come over to this Raglor Transit, and I think that's where I'll end the video, is once we get to here, because I'll show you this. You know, I'll show you this flight and how it works out. And by the way, if you notice, this is like light yet blue. Sometimes you'll see that this is like a different color, and it's based on your, you know, your average fuel velocity. So you know, but you will get to know that this ship can do 63,000 even without any upgrades. Though, you know, though we will have a little bit of a challenge to it. All right, so let me show you this one flight, and then we'll get out of here. I'm just going to back up and turn. Not that we can't do it, but I know if I face out to sea, that's where we're heading, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to hit throttle. We're going to hit and hold Y, and then once we get a little bit in the air, I'll start getting some speed, because I know we can drop down over the ocean here. Like, I'll kind of avoid that rock, right? And I want to get our speed up to about 100. But I also want to try to maintain that we're climbing a bit, and I'll show you why as I hit this. Now we're turning, and we're clear out in the ocean, and we're over 100. So I'm going to hit the X. Notice how we dip down a bit. So if you're, like, be prepared for that. Like, it'll take a while. Now, once we get up to about 250, we'll start getting some drag. So we want to cut this back because we don't, without any extra batteries and whatnot, we're going to have some issues. Now I'm going to take this stick and just slightly pull so it starts turning, and you'll see that it'll roll the aircraft if you just go over. So I'm just pulling a little bit over on the left stick to the left. And it's a little slow to stop, so I actually want to let go like now. And there we go. Now that I've done that maneuver, if you look up here, we're just off a little bit, so I might correct just a tad. There we go. So now I'm pointing pretty much right at this thing, and it's right ahead. Now, whatever your map button is, if you press it now, it'll tell you the things in the area, which is kind of nice, so you can see that it's right ahead. And that will help you, like, as you get closer, you can kind of tell the height that you want to be at. But I know this is right on the ocean, so you might want to go up and, the D stick just a little bit. But now you're basically flying like an airplane. Now I want to slow down a little bit, just because I don't want to use up a lot of fuel. See how we're already down to 3,000 or 3,300? So there's no reason to go that fast and use up the excess fuel. Now see, we're getting drag on our wings, so I definitely want to slow down just to conserve the fuel, say. And if we get under 250, those clouds around the wings go away. There you go, see that? So I believe that that's because you're more fuel efficient going slower. So there's, depending on, and again, I just know because we don't have upgrades that we're going to need to do that. Now we still have 38,000 miles, kilometers, 37 kilometers to go. There you go, not 37,000 kilometers. So I guess in English, K, when I see K, that means like 1,000. So I guess my brain went into that mode. So you can see getting out here is going to be a bit of a trek for this, right? Did we do it as absolutely efficiently as we could? Probably not, but you can see where this, is going to be a bit of a challenge for us. And, again, we get pretty good gas mileage here, like once you're in airplane mode. But you also you want to come in at a good height too, right? Because if you come in way high or way fast, you're going to use more fuel to slow down. Now I'm going to turn off that symbol. I kind of like not having it. I also like I wish you could change the camera default position a little more. Like just boom, you can center it back on the plane by hitting C on your keyboard, or you can, of course, you can map it to something. But I happen to know that this is like a more or less I think it's on an island, but at the same time it's pretty low. We don't want to be real high. Now, as you're going, the speed, you get lift from these wings, so that's how we're being more efficient at this case. You can also see our batteries are definitely yellow now because we're below 50%, and it's telling you how much time we have left. Now, not to worry, because at some point here, maybe about 10,000, there we go again, 10 kilometers out, we're going to start slowing down. We can even start slowing down now, and you'll notice this time goes up when we slow down, right? And there, see, I know it's right near this island here. So we're going to start slowing down, so that way we don't have to use a lot of energy to slow down, right? Because the way to do that is going to be to switch back into vertical mode, and but at the same time, like, unless you're just really in a hurry for some unknown reason, you probably want to, just conserve your energy, especially because it's getting low, right? Like, we don't want to come in here and slowing down. We're also covering distance while we're using a lot less power. So now I can see we're kind of coming in a little low, which will help us slow down if, I don't need to go up that fast. There we go. But we do want to come in a little higher. I can just tell from experience, I guess you could say. You can see up ahead. Might not be real clear on YouTube, but so now we want to, once we get down to about 3, a little bit closer, now we want to get ready to start, really slowing down. So I'm even going to cut this down to 0 for a minute and let that speed and let us start to get to like a dropping stage, right? Like now that we're falling, now I'll switch in, I'll put this up to about neutral, and then try to keep that coming down at about 20, just like the other aircraft. Get that vertical speed down to about 0, especially because I can't even see the landing pad, though I know it's, you do want a little forward momentum. Now we want to get this, now we're getting close enough. Let's get it in the teens. Once we get around 10, 11, we're not too close. Like I said, all the planes, if you bring them in at about 5, that's pretty good. Though we coming in as slow as we are, we might get into a little bit of a hover mode. Nope, touch right down, hit Y. And there we go. We made our first airplane-like landing. Now this is like kind of one of the main ports out here where you can do upgrades. And I'll just show you some of the upgrades maybe you can get for this ship. Real quick, we'll go over, there we go, turn that yellow. Now remember, we don't want to sell it here, right? We're just sort of stopping. Yeah, now that I think about it. Oh, look, I switched into the wrong mode. There you go. That's what happens when you switch into the wrong mode. Remember, we're just stopping here in order to get fuel because we have to go over to that other place. So we would just come in and hit X, get new fuel, and you can see where we were kind of tight on fuel. That was a matter of experience, knowing that I can't fly the whole way there with this plane. So some extra advice would be to take things cautiously. Another thing I should have probably pointed out is that you can do multiple waypoints. Like you don't have to click on one of those. So if we wanted to, fly that way, and it doesn't even have to be on one of those. It could just be, I want to fly out to this point in the ocean. And where that's helpful is if you zoom in on this map, you can tell there's like a high point and a volcano here. All of these red ridges have a higher height. So you may want to, if I get clear, like say we wanted to come down to one of like this port C, nothing there at the moment, but we might want to come here first, right? That way we're like, maybe we even come here and then here, and then come here and then go to there. And then that way we're avoiding a lot of the tall spots, especially if there's a lot of weather, which they warn you about sometimes. There you go. So in any event, let's go back to the map for one more second, and I'll wrap up the episode or the review, the recommendation. If we hover over this, you can see we have that cargo is kind of messing up. Maybe if we zoom in, we can see better. Not really. But you can see there's the different. We can get the Barbarian engine upgrade for 9,000, which is really not. That's probably one of the first things that you want to get is those extra engines and getting batteries. So as you supply this guy with more stuff, the more stuff will become available for you to upgrade, and I'll leave you guys to learn all that. I think you probably get enough of a picture, I hope, of what this game is about to know whether you might enjoy it, but I certainly have. It's well done. I haven't run into any huge bugs. The ground's a little bit funny to drive these planes on. Like sometimes you get glitchy going up and down these ramps, but beyond that, it's really well done. It's been out since January 2018 as far as early access goes, and they're still working on it. So, it's obvious that they're still caring about it. I see things like a workshop button, even though there's no workshop on Steam at this point. So I could see a future where they might allow you to have extra planes and just who knows what else. Other cargoes, I guess. Who knows what they'll actually open up to a workshop thing. There you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you guys, if you want to see more, leave a comment or likes. If I see a lot of attention to this video, I'll definitely make another one because, like I said, I'll be playing on my other save. And I just thought I'd share this with you guys because I've enjoyed it so much. So, take care of yourselves. And by the way, I'm also not affiliated in any way, shape, or form. I didn't get this for free. I paid my $25 for it. This is nothing to do with the developers. This is just purely my recommendation. So, all right, guys. Have a good day and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.